everyone. This is Quinn Curtis, and you are listening to Joyful Living. And today I am joined by a very special guest. We have Pam Wasley, who is here to join us, and she has some really powerful insights, especially in growing your business, getting it off the ground, whether that's from startup phase to taking it to the next level, and especially looking at how we can kind of do that while working really smart and efficiently so that your lifestyle is preserved alongside of that, or so you can create the life that you want. So before I officially welcome Pam, let me tell you a little bit about her. Pam is the co-founder and CEO of Serious Executives and Serious Advisors. She is a serial entrepreneur with multiple decades of knowledge and experience. She has personally sold companies, led a management buyout, and advised hundreds of companies on strategies for growth and higher shareholder value. Pam has served on several private boards and is a highly sought-after speaker and has been featured in prestigious publications such as Forbes, Entrepreneur, Fortune, and Bloomberg Business Week on the topics of mergers and acquisitions, the workforce of the future, and global contingent workforces. So without any further ado, Pam, welcome officially to Joyful Living.
Okay, I'm starting to feel old here after the decades.
And I'm like, you do not seem old enough to.
Well, I have to tell you, it's really been a learning experience, and you have to learn something every day. It's just really important that you do that, and I can tell you, I've learned a lot from my successes as well as my failures.
Yes. And what I hear from that bio is you've really been in the trenches of business for a long time. And I mean, if it really, you still do, I don't believe decades yet still, because you look so young, but really business has evolved dramatically in just even the past 10 years into even the past 20 years. Right. And you've been in the front lines of that evolution. Is there I'm just curious to just pick your brain. Like, what is that like to have seen that evolve so significantly?
It's really amazing. We didn't have cell phones until
Right.
the 1990s. I mean,
I know.
All this stuff that we have today that we take for granted, it hasn't been around very long. And things are speeding up even more every day. I mean, technology is giving you the ability to do so many more things and, automate your office. And it's amazing what it has accomplished and made our lives easier.
Yes.
However, I will tell you though, with everything that's happening, it is nice to unplug every once in a while. I mean, you talk about joyful living. Every once in a while, people should unplug, because if you don't, I mean, everyone's brain needs a rest.
Yes.
In fact, I just read an article the other day about how people, no matter what they're doing, they don't take a moment to be bored.
Yes.
So instead of being bored, I'm going to pick up my cell phone, or I'm going to do an email, or I'm going to, do something else, paperwork, whatever. I can't think of the last time I was actually bored. Mm-hmm. So really, and that's important, because if you don't let your brain rest, you're not going to come up with new innovative ideas. Your brain's not going to be able to regenerate. So I really got thinking about that, and I thought, so the other day I was sitting downstairs and I was just kind of literally sitting there, and I went, oh, I need to look at my phone, see what emails come in or whatever. I went, no, not doing it. I'm just going to look at the view. I'm going to, just take a moment to just be in the moment, as opposed to trying to do something every moment. And I have to tell you, I felt better after about 3 minutes of that. My brain just got a chance to relax. I think I understand now why people like to meditate, because again, you're unplugging, you're giving your brain a rest, and it regenerates, which is what most people don't do today.
Yeah. I mean, even I do a lot of work with coaching health coaches, and it's so fascinating how, lack of sleep is a major problem in our society right now, right? So we're using medications to try to get that relax and that unplug. We're using alcohol, or, even TV, like just to try to zone out, but it doesn't have to be that hard necessarily, or if we get more in a habit of unplugging, like you're saying.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, it's just really important.
It is. It was reminding me, I'm sure you've heard this term as well. I believe I read about it in Forbes or something, I think, but about the Japanese overworking phenomenon that's happening of karoshi, and that it's insane that there's even charities in Japan for families who have had a provider die from overworking. Like they're just working themselves to death. And so that really is what's at the other end of the spectrum if we're not unplugging and taking care of ourselves, right?
Yep.
And
you can work smart and still have a life.
yes.
So and I see a lot of entrepreneurs think you can't do that. I mean, they just got to be working all the time. They got to be going after that next idea. And it's not that that's not true. I mean, I don't want to miss a moment. So, what I try to do is write down or put it on my iPhone, okay, here's a note I need to think about more later, rather than do it in that second, because actually the longer you give something to kind of gel around in your mind, the better it comes out at the other end. A good example of that is like, I'll get some ideas when I'm walking in the morning, and then I come in and I take a shower and I go, aha, that's the strategy I want to use on this piece today, on some of the things that I've got going on. So it just, sometimes you just need to allow time to really think about these things rather than thinking you have to act on everything right this second, because I have to tell you, that's where mistakes are made. Entrepreneurs, people just starting their business, sure, we're all risk takers. I'm a big risk taker, but it's still, you should think about things. I mean, think them out a little bit before you act on them, especially with as fast as things are moving today. You could make a mistake, not just you couldn't recover from it, but that could put you back a couple steps.
Absolutely. And I'm loving this counsel that you're giving of just give something, don't act on it right in the moment, just give it some time, and that the longer you give something, the more effective it will be, or the better it will turn out. It's reminded me, I was just reading one of my unplugging is I'm reading this book right now called Writing Wild, and it's fabulous, by Tina Welling. And she talks about how instead of like acting on those things, that they become like an idea magnet in your system. If you just sit it and you're like, oh yeah, we should do that. And then you just let that magnet start to attract the things that it's supposed to. And then you can act on it from that place instead of when it's just right in the beginning.
Exactly. Or you can have time to run it by your team or your business partner or, your family members or whatever, because you don't have all the answers. You may think you do, but you don't have all the answers. And sometimes people come up with, they come up with this oddball idea and you think, really? But the more you think about it, the more that idea is the best idea of all. I mean, in fact, there was, again, another article I read about, sometimes it's those weird ideas, these oddball ideas that really trigger the way you should be moving forward.
Wow.
So try to slap as much up on the wall. Every time we've had strategic planning meeting, we've had somebody come in to coordinate it. They say, yeah, just throw things up on the wall. It doesn't matter how good or bad it is.
Yeah.
He's right, because some of those ideas that we think are funny and not relevant are actually very relevant at the end of the day when you put all the things together.
Wow. Yeah. I love that. And I'd be curious, you've been in so many different, high risk business situations and big business transactions and things that are happening. At that level, what do you see with people's lifestyle? Like what advice would you give for people who are trying to scale their business, I guess is what I'm looking at, because what seems to have happened even in the last 20 years is you used to have a lot more people that were starting businesses because they went to business school and they got their MBA. And now it's like a massive movement of the at-home entrepreneur who's learning it all that way, but I feel like the results of that success or the results of growing something are very similar, and there's some wisdom missed by not having had that education. Does that make sense where I'm going? And not necessarily saying you have to have an MBA, but it's so new to so many of us, you know?
Yeah, think back on all the great CEOs of large companies today that don't have degrees.
Yes.
I mean, think about it. I mean, there's a lot of them actually.
Yeah.
So do you really need degrees? Sure, you should try to get your degree. I mean, it always helps. It doesn't hurt. But really, there's a formula to really starting businesses today. So, one is really have a plan, think it out. Don't just come up with an idea and just start, doing it. I mean, really think about it. And don't leave it in your head because I can't tell you how many CEOs today, I said, do you have a business plan? Yes, we do. It's all right here. It's all in my head. Well, can you put it down on paper? You might find some things that you don't agree with, or maybe you want to do something a little bit differently, or you might find some mistakes. You might find things in there that you want to change. So get it down on paper. Obviously, discuss it with your team, whoever you're starting the business with. If you're starting it, by yourself, run it by your friends, run it by your family. Because typically if you're raising capital, you're usually raising it from family and friends to begin with anyway. So they'll be very important to, giving you a little bit of guidance, or even better, get a coach, get a mentor.
Yeah.
It's interesting. That's something, and my father was my mentor. However, he died at an early age, so I really didn't have the benefit of it as I started my other businesses. So it was, I really miss that. But if you can, I always recommend that entrepreneurs always go out and try to find a mentor. And it doesn't have to be necessarily in your industry. It can be somebody that's just run a business and really knows how to ramp one up. It can be, just somebody who's really passionate about that industry and has a lot of knowledge about it and can help you kind of guide you. But get somebody that can really give you some real common sense guidance to move forward, because there's nothing better than having somebody, you're across the table, just passionate about it, wild about some idea. And he goes, well, have you thought about this? And you go, not really. So, and then he explains why he's asking him those questions, and you go, oh yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. Well, let's look at another way that we might want to do the same thing, but in a little bit different way. I mean, I love that. So if you can find somebody that can kind of help you take you through those steps, not somebody that's going to say, you can't do that, or I suggest you do it this way. You want somebody that's going to ask you questions and make you think. Because if you're passionate about this business, you've done your homework, you've done your research, you know what you're doing. You just haven't thought through every point.
Yeah. I love that is such a primary thing that you recommend right at the beginning. It was reminding me of a female entrepreneur event that I went to. It may have even been 8 years ago or something, but it was so fascinating because at the beginning of the event, everybody started just super excited about all of their ideas and I'm going to do this for my business. It's going to be amazing. And then by the end, I think most of the women had realized like, oh, that's what it's going to take to actually grow it. I don't know if I actually do want this. And it was really heartbreaking to see these dreams just dying by the wayside as they felt like, oh, I can't do that, or I shouldn't do that. And so I think that's definitely a motivator for me in my business, and I'm sure for you as well, of just like that there's kind of these two sides, right? Where you first get the idea and it kind of feels like a hobby, and then you get to choose I'm going to make something of this, but that's a really courageous choice that's sometimes hard for people to make.
Right. Right. And it is, it's, when they find out really what it takes, sometimes people do reconsider, and that's not bad. I mean, if they don't think they have it, have the time or can really put forth the effort right now, maybe it's best that they don't do it now. Maybe they can do some other version of that idea later on when they do have the time or they want to put out the effort. Yeah. So it's not a bad thing. However, if it's your passion, I hear the millennials talk about, doing things that they're passionate about. And hey, I got to tell you, I give them a lot of credit for that. I mean, why should you waste your time? In fact, my dad always said, well, be loyal, be dependable, and you'll have a job for life. Well, I'm not sure I could be passionate about a business for life.
Yes.
So, and if for every stage you have in your life, you finish up one area that you're passionate about. You feel like, okay, you've completed this run. And now all of a sudden you think you want to go on to this. Not to say that you should change every year, but literally, I mean, that's kind of what I've done. I mean, I've finished each cycle, learned my lessons from each one of my businesses, and then, started looking around, okay, what else is a real need that businesses or people want out there? So it's, again, don't be afraid to go after your passion, because I think it's a good thing. Now, taking that a step further, and that, by the way, that applies to not only business, but it also applies to your life.
Yeah.
We all talk about, as we get older, we start talking about our bucket list. Well, I'm sorry, but you should be talking about that bucket list when you're in your 30s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you want to make sure you get them all in. I mean, you could be hit by a bus tomorrow. So you want to make sure that you've got plans or a way to achieve all the things that you'd really like to do. Don't wait till you're 65, 70 when you're retired, maybe, and, go do them then, because, sometimes you're just not, your health isn't there, and, you waited too long. So, really apply that to both sides of your life. And then the second piece, which I'm very passionate about, is, okay, so with everything you do, whether it's business or life, you should, you're always going to learn something. Good, by the way, good or bad, success or failures. But make sure number one, you learn from it, and two, share it. Wow. There's nothing, and in fact, I mentor some entrepreneurs now, and I have to tell you, there's nothing more, rewarding for me than to share and stop somebody from making some of the same mistakes that I did. Because why should somebody repeat them when I can give them some guidance? It's a little bit different world, so maybe not all the circumstances apply, but the general business, lesson underneath does apply, and maybe they can do it more successfully than I did. And like I said, I really wish I had somebody that could have helped me through some of those, because, I made some real doozies in my life. So.
Which, thank you for speaking to that. Even reading your bio, we tend to only hear the pretty side of the picture, right? But not, what else was going on, Pam? Or how did that even happen, right? What foundation was laid through all of those learning mistakes that prepared you for those successes, right?
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I loved, you were telling me before the show that you no matter if it's a startup business or if it's a business that's kind of bigger and they want to scale, they're always asking you the same kinds of questions.
Right.
So I am super curious, what kinds of questions are people asking? And I know you have a great resource, of course, that can help answer that.
Okay. So, some of the basics, questions that we always get is, okay, so how do I do this? How do I start a company? We get that just almost every time somebody's starting their business, because they don't really know. Plus, in today's world, you got to watch out for all the labor laws, the EDD, the IRS, because there are laws around, whether you're an independent executive or whether you're a small business. So you have to really make sure that you've got all of your legalities in order. So we give them advice on that, which entity, whether it's LLC, sub S, C Corp, or whatever, we can answer it through that. But some of the other questions, just real quick, are, so what do I charge? What do I charge for my products, or what do I charge for my services? Another one is, so how do I get clients? Is it still all referrals? Can I, how do I do marketing? If I do marketing, what marketing? There's lots of marketing out there. What do I do? Another one is, every time I go out to see a client, I lose the job. Why is that? Another one is, what paperwork do I need? What contracts do I need? Do I just put a one pager together and throw it out to the customer? Do I let them call me and send me their contract? And do I just sign their contract? I mean, there's all these questions that people just don't know. So yeah, we've answered all those questions and more in a book that we've just written. My business partner and I wrote it because literally, I mean, those are the questions we were getting for the last 12 years. And not that we minded answering them, it was great. But, there's so many people out there that don't ask those questions and they don't know the answers, that we wanted to help them as well. So this is literally all the inside secrets of how to successfully run your business. Whether you're a small business or whether you're a consultant or independent executive, all three this book applies to.
I love it. And tell us the title. It's the best title ever. I love it.
Well, we were trying to make it catchy so you remember it. So
it is. I love it.
So it's How I Fired My Boss and Made More Money.
So good. Seriously. And is this available on Amazon then?
Yes, Amazon, absolutely. And it's in ebook, it's in paperback, it's however format that you want. And right now, I have to tell you, if you go to Amazon, there's quite a few people. We're running a promotion on it because there's so many people that are trying to buy it right now. So anyway, it's a good time to go to Amazon. Or if you want to go through our site, which is www.seriousexecutives.com/joyful living.
Oh,
you have to put joyful living on the end.
Beautiful.
Then you'll be able to, actually download the book for free.
Are you serious?
In a PDF, and you can read it that way. If you're Kindle, if you really like everything on a Kindle, then you'll have to go through Amazon. But for anyone that's watching the show, then they can get it through. And by the way, Sirius, so it's Sirius is spelled CERIUS, executives, EXECUTIVES.com/joyful living. And don't forget the joyful living at the end.
No,
that's important.
Pam, that is such a generous gift. Thank you so much for offering that to our listeners. I'm just blown away. As I'm listening to you share some of those questions, I'm just thinking back on my entrepreneurial journey and wishing I would have had that book at the beginning or even, through each phase of the evolution, because it's funny, especially with more of our business shifting online, it can be kind of easy to think, oh, I don't need that stuff, or that feels really overwhelming, so I'm not even going to look at it. But I know in my own world with a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've been working with, there's a couple of them that have been in some very serious legal battles that they never expected, because they never set up their businesses properly, right? And they got into a new venture, and it was just in the idea phase where everybody's excited and happy and let's all be partners and let's have fun and let's on a handshake and we'll all play nice. And then it didn't pan out how each person thought it would, and it ends up ruining the relationship, and it ends up costing thousands of dollars in legal fees, and it's just a nightmare. So there's so much wisdom in what Pam was sharing. Is there anything else you'd like to add as I bring all that up, though? I felt like.
Well, you are so correct. In fact, again, it's so important. Everybody thinks, well, I don't want to have to pay a lawyer. They're too expensive. Well, not everybody's that expensive. You can find one that's relatively cheaper than all the rest, and cheaper meaning about $3.50 an hour. You can usually find one. But I will tell you, every cent of that attorney, what they do for you, if you get a good attorney, is great. It will come back to you tenfold, 100-fold in the protection that it gives you. Because as much as we like to think that people are honest and everybody's going to, play by the same rules, it just doesn't happen in the real world. So it's just really important. And in the partner area, if you go in with a partner, it's even more so important. In fact, one of the things that we have on this, the link that I just gave you, is also a cheat sheet for partnerships.
Oh my gosh.
And I wrote an article on this about, how to make sure that you pick the right partner and what to do to set it up legally so that everybody remains friends, amicable, even if it doesn't work out, and everybody walks away fairly at the end. But if you don't put all that stuff into place, then, oh my gosh, it could really, especially people that go into business with their friends.
Oh yeah.
Not to say that you shouldn't, but I have to tell you, my business partner, she wasn't a friend of mine. I met her when I was on a board. I was the chairman of the board and she was the treasurer. Mm. We worked really well together. And then I hired her to open up my Washington, D.C. office. Mm. And we got along great then too. But even though we worked well together, man, we still put together this, partnership agreement and all the legalities needed. So at the end of the day that, we were both on the same page, no matter which direction we took in the long run.
So invaluable. I'm just thinking about all the pain that would have solved for the people in my world. Let's see. Man, so Pam, this is invaluable insights that you're giving. And I love that you start with saying with this partnership that you guys got along great. You worked really well together. There were no red flags that you were thinking, okay, we got to make sure that we have a partnership agreement and that I'm protected and she's, which I think that is safe to assume all of us go into it that kind of way, right? And then we don't put that protection in place though. And so, I love the saying that, what is it? I think just contracts keep nice people nice. It keeps things peaceful. Whereas without that in place, it's really hard. So I feel like you were kind of on a roller with the next thought. So I didn't want to interrupt. Sorry, but yeah. So
we also talk about that a little bit in our books to give people an idea, because again, a lot of people like to start businesses with other people. So that's an important question that we address.
Yeah. And there's interesting elements I'm sure you probably look at too, as far as, who does what and who's really responsible for what for the long term. Because lots of times partnerships can shift and one partner is ending up doing all the work and the other isn't. And then there's still this 50-50 split or something crazy,
Right. Well, I have to tell you a funny story on when we got together. The reason we got along so well, whether it was on the nonprofit or whether it was when I hired her, the nice thing about Kristen is she likes all the stuff that I don't like, and I like all the stuff she doesn't like. So it really is pretty 50-50. It works out really well. Now, sure, I do some of the things that I don't like to do to help her and vice versa, but we stay out of each other's way. And I think that's really important that you do. You don't want two people working in different directions in the same area, because that would be deadly for your business. So you really want some. Now, again, not to say that they can't help you. When I get stuck on my piece, then I go to her and say, okay, well, I'm thinking about this. Can you unstick me? I'm just not coming up with a solution here. And she's great at that. So again, she's not mirrored in it every day like I am. So she can think more outside the box. So it's really a good partnership.
So cool. I love that. And that is in the book then. You've got good insights on partnerships, you were saying.
Yes. Yeah. So they can find that in there. Yeah.
So valuable. I was going to ask you here, and just kind of turning the conversation a little bit, with having been in business and growing businesses and managing businesses and all of those pieces that you've done, what's it been like, or what insights or top tips would you have for balancing that with having a life and a lifestyle? We talked about unplugging, but what other pieces have you found to be really valuable?
That's actually a great question. So I thank you for asking it, because it's something that's really hard to do. You have to be totally disciplined. And I have to say that up until probably 2-3 years ago, I wasn't very disciplined at it. So I was pretty much working around the clock, weekends, during the week. And family, friends, they just said, well, we don't have to worry about Pam because she's always working.
Yeah.
So finally I woke up, and of course, the family usually is the trigger there. They're like, you can see the relationships kind of starting to pull apart. So the interesting thing is, once you get the dynamics down, it's actually pretty simple. And you go, why didn't I do that earlier? So here's what I'm talking about. People don't work very smart. They don't start the day with lists. They don't determine what their priorities are. They just jump into the day, and oh my gosh, by 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, it's been a hairy day, and they can't figure out what they did all day. They just know they did something, and now they're all ready for tomorrow, but they're not prepared. They're just going to jump into another day.
Right.
Same thing with your life. Well, it's at your convenience. When you have a couple minutes, maybe you'll run downstairs see the family on the weekend, or I can do a bicycle ride between, 12:30 and 1, or, it just, instead of doing that, plan it. So now, before I start the night before each day, I sit down and write a priority list. So I have top priorities, and then I have things that I'd really like to get done. But if they shift in the next day, it's not the end of the world. Priorities have to be done. I don't care what, they just have to be done, because otherwise you're not moving forward. All you're doing is moving, but you're not moving forward.
Right.
So, so the next day I get up and I make sure I get all that stuff. But in that plan of priorities is, okay, I promised so-and-so that we would, go to the store tonight, or I promised we'd go to the movies, or I promised on Saturday, we have a baby shower coming up, or whatever. So now I put everything on my calendar, and I just make a commitment. It's going to happen. Now, does it always work out perfectly? No, sometimes things do come up, but rarely now, because I have it planned. Just like on Fridays in the afternoon, typically somewhere between 1 and 3, no email, no telephone calls, no nothing. And that is let's sit back and think about where we are as a business, where we want to go, how much have we accomplished, what's not getting accomplished, what's my competition doing, it's my research day, if you will.
Yeah.
And to kind of regroup. So again, I find if I put stuff like that on my calendar, so now you have business life, you've got your thinking time, and you've got your family life all on your calendar. And it's not, it's not that I live and breathe. I mean, I can remember what I'm going to do in the weekend with my family. I mean, my family is important. So, but it just helps to put it there, because I noticed every once in a while I'll forget to put something on there, and I get the wrath of family because I told you twice.
Yes, yeah.
So, but not that I don't do it. But sometimes I have to juggle some things around to be able to do it. So I try to always make sure that I have everything I'm going to be doing on my calendar, because then I'm relaxed. Okay, so it's coming up to 6 o'clock. I've got to go down because I'm cooking dinner tonight, and I just make sure that by the time 6 o'clock runs around, I'm there. I'm relaxed. I know what my next step is going to be. It's in the kitchen, making whatever meal. It's mapping it out. It's planning it out. And if you can do that for your own personal life, just think what your business will look like. Because again, it's all about, keeping things moving forward, keeping things, so that everybody is communicating, understands where you are at any one given time, whether it's your employee, whether it's your family, whatever. It's important to have that organization, if you will. And trust me, this is something I've done, but I can't tell you I'm the most organized person in the world.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, this is the best thing I ever did 3 years ago.
Man, and it's just so crazy because I'm just thinking, even as a lot of the listeners will be hearing this, I'm sure a lot of them will think, well, that sounds really nice for Pam, who's already created blah, 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 blah. Like we always make up a story about it. And that's one of the biggest things that can be a snare with growing a business, I think, is that we're like, well, once I reach this milestone, then I'll finally have the lifestyle, or, you know, and then I'll finally take time for my family. And just before you know it, 5 years have gone by, right? And
your kids are grown. Exactly.
Yes. You sound like you can relate. That was my experience. That's actually what started and tipped off the creation of this podcast and this movement, was that I had spent 3 years working 60 or more hours a week, never seeing my family, always saying, you know, it's going to be so worth it, and we're going to get there, and it's going to happen, and I just need to get these things done. I just have this last deadline. I just have this last, for, you know, it turned into 3 years. And then all of a sudden my oldest kids, who were babies and toddlers when I started out, I missed that whole chunk of time, and you just don't get it back. Even though, like, I feel like my body was physically there, like during points, you know, my mind was so not. I was in my work.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Well, you know, it's not that you're not thinking about work. When you're passionate about something, you're always thinking about it.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not to say that I'm not, but again, I try to compartmentalize. Okay, so there's a thought. I need to put that over there, that thought over there, to kind of, when I've got a moment this afternoon. And even though I have a schedule, it's not scheduled every minute of the day. I mean, you know, on Saturdays, everybody kind of does their thing at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I just come up here and literally I get a whole bunch more work done. But again, I've taken note of it. What I wanted to do, I've, you know, put it on my iPhone in the notes section, or, you know, so I can immediately access it. So I don't go, I was thinking a thought the other day and I can't remember what that was now. Mm-hmm. So again, a little organization goes a long way, and it just really helps you work smarter. Don't go overboard with it. You know, you're a passionate entrepreneur, and you should roll with it. Yeah. But again, you can build your company faster. You can, you know, have more of a life, and you'll just be happier. I mean, talk about joyful living. To me, that's joyful living. Being so passionate and tired and stressed and worn out all the time, that's not joyful living, no matter how much fun it is.
Yes. Yes, I just heard such good, or I was just glad for somebody validating it, that they were saying we don't celebrate enough that when you're growing a business, there is no shame in getting a part-time job or even a full-time job to help you make ends meet while you're growing it.
Yep.
That should be celebrated more, instead of just jump right in, and then it does keep you in a really frantic space where all of your work hours, you're super stressed because you needed money yesterday.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, so cool. Well, Pam, I would love to hear as well. I always love asking our special guests what their flavor of joyful living actually looks like. And I know we've kind of played with a few of the undertones, I'm sure, but I'd love for you to expand and even paint a larger picture, because a big premise here is that joyful living looks different to everybody. We all have our own different flavors and what works for us. And one of the things that keeps us stuck from finding our flavor and living in joy is thinking that it's got to fit in that one size fits all box, or it has to look like we have, you know, X, Y, and Z that everybody else has or the neighbor has. And so it's just fun to hear like what each person's flavor is. So I'm curious, Pam, tell us more about your flavor.
Well, you know, don't let things pass you by. I see a lot of people say they've been talking about things for years, you know, and so joyful living to me is really, if you're really thinking about it all the time, you're really passionate about it, just do it. Just, you know, life's too short to try to second guess yourself or not act on something that you think is, you know, if it's your passion. Yeah. You know, people wait till much later in life to act on some of these passions, and sometimes it's okay, and sometimes it's, it's too late. So, if you're passionate about something, and try to be passionate about things. I mean, find out what your passions are in life and, go after them. And then I'm sorry, I just have to always add this in. Once you find those passions and you're really living life, life is not a bowl of cherries all the time. It really is ups and downs. Mm-hmm. So, joyful living to me is taking those bad times and sharing them with others and helping them not make those same mistakes. Mm. So to me, that's joyful. It's just keeping others from having to go through the agony of what I've done. So to me, that's joyful living.
Oh, I love that. Really turning those lemons into lemonade.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Oh my goodness. Well, and it was making me I loved what you were saying about just life is too short, and stop wasting time just thinking about it. And I just wanted to drop the microphone right there because it's so true.
Yep. How many people you heard say that? I mean, I've heard a ton of people. Yes. Well, one time in my life, I'd really like to do this. Well, what's wrong with now? Yeah. What's wrong with this year or next year? What plans do you have to make this happen? And they're like,
Right. Which looks like you have to get out of, get that story of why you can't have what you want or why you wouldn't be a success out of the way, which can be so tricky. So I know with a lot of the people that you've talked with, and we've actually talked a lot about this on the show, is just that aspect of our stories. Have you seen any really helpful strategies to get out of the story and into just effective business action?
Well, the person has to really want to do it. I mean, just because they talk about it doesn't mean they really want to do it. It could be fears just making them, not want to go that next step. And sometimes they can't get past that fear. So, if they're really passionate about it, but they just haven't acted on it yet, sit down and talk with them. I mean, get your best friend to sit down and talk it through with you and get their take on it. What do you think? Do you think I'd be good at this? And by the way, your friends, if they're truly friends, they're going to tell you, they're going to be honest with you. So you want to hear those things. Our independent executives that we work with all the time, they're always asking us, well, give me a, your real opinion of what you think of this presentation or whatever. We're going to tell them, so, but get your friends to tell you, if your idea looks good, if it doesn't, maybe they can help you tweak it. Maybe they've got somebody that they know that actually has been in that business that can sit down and talk with you. So the first thing is to talk it over with people you confide in and that you really want to listen to, and then see if they've got some others that might be able to help you, who might ultimately become a mentor to you. And then, if after talking about it all the way through and coming up with kind of a strategy to what that looks like, then, start moving in that direction, start putting a plan down on paper. Because it is kind of all of a process. Yeah. But the more you talk, the less you do. So, get out of the talking phase. So true. And, you can do that up front to get, make sure you got all the thoughts about it and the direction and whether it's a viable idea or not. And then start putting it on paper, because the more you can put that down on paper, the more it's going to fine tune and the more successful you're going to be in the long run. Don't just keep it up here.
Yes, that is so funny. And so do you actually have insights in your book about like drafting that business plan then? Or what would you recommend for that?
Well, we actually have a step-by-step all the way through the book. Wow. So it tells you how to start, what to do. I mean, literally it takes you through all the stages of building your business. So it really is. In fact, we had one of our executives come back to us and they said, oh my gosh, I have this book open up on my desk to refer to every day to see, am I missing something, or, you know, in the marketing, is there something else I can do there? Or am I, you know, am I getting referrals from all the people I should? I mean, it's really, it's like a reference guide, a very easy, well-structured guide that you can get all those answers to right there from that one book.
So invaluable. I love it. Man, well, Pam, this has been so enlightening, and I think your perspective is so invaluable to really have experienced so much in business to have then simplified it. In fact, I was just hearing a quote recently that they said, you know, I value simplicity on the other side of complexity way more than just the initial simple idea, right? That you've really taken us through that entire process of what really is working out there and what really is fundamental to business, and made it really simple and effective, which is absolutely invaluable. So thank you for bringing that genius to the world. It's massive.
No problem.
I always love to do a few rapid fire questions at the end. And so if you're up for that, and then I would love to give you the opportunity, if there's any closing thoughts or anything you'd like to share at the end, that you have that opportunity to do so. But are you up for some rapid fire questions for a minute?
Sure. Go ahead. Shoot.
Awesome. Okay. So this is shifting more into the joyful living gear and kind of a peek behind, you know, into your life, into Pam's joyful living. So tell us, or paint a little picture of joyful living with your friends. What does that look like? Or what do you love to do?
Oh, fun, happiness. Just, you know, it's interesting to me. Friends are people you look forward to seeing every time you get together.
Aww.
It's not a chore. It's just, those are friends that you could hardly wait to see them again.
I love that definition. I'm just soaking that in. That's, again, so simple and so powerful. And oh gosh, I love it. Okay. How about joy in your family or with your family?
Well, family is very important to me. So it's just getting together and having quality time with your family when you see them, because, you know, sometimes you don't live close to them. So they may live far away. So yes, just really enjoying the quality time that you have with them.
I love that. And I forgot to ask you, the next is, are you joy with your spouse? Are you married though? I forgot to
Yes.
check with that first. Okay, good. So, so joyful living with your spouse.
You know, the moments together, the moments just talking. You know, we don't do a lot of talking these days. We do a lot with technology, but we don't do a lot with talking. So this is just, you know, out on the back patio and at night, just kind of, you know, smelling the air and the quiet and just talking.
Oh, I love that. So delicious. How about joy with yourself, like solo time?
Hiking, walking on the beach, reading a really good book, whether business or whether it's a, you know, nonfiction, fiction. It's just really I'm really kind of a, what they call an ambivert. So ambivert is a combination of a extrovert and an introvert. So ambivert can be an extrovert when they need to be, but they're really an introvert. So that's really me. So when I have my alone moments or time for me, my personal time, it really is that hiking, you know, biking, but it's not necessarily with friends. It's really just getting out alone and again, walking on that beach.
Oh, I love that. And this might be related to that actually also. The final question is just joy with the divine, or whatever flavor the divine is in your world.
That's actually an excellent question. So it's knowing that there's a divine being that's kind of watching over you. I can attest to the fact that he's definitely not finished with me yet. I've got a lot of growing yet to be. So, but it's one of the things that I get from that is every day I wake up feeling blessed for something.
Mm.
So, and if you think about it, no matter how crummy you think your day is going to be or whatever, there's always something you should be grateful for, whether it's the great weather, whether it's great friends, whether it's a beautiful tree, a beautiful flower. I mean, there's always, in fact, a friend of mine, literally every day that she gets up, and she gets up something like at 4:30 in the morning. I get up at 5, but she gets up at 4:30 and literally writes out a list every day of what she's thankful for.
Oh.
And she said, literally, she could keep on going on that list because you should be. I mean, a good friend of mine who's a little bit older, he says, every day is a good day when I can actually put one foot after another out of the bed. So feeling blessed about, things around you.
Oh, I love that. So I just love it. Thank you for sharing your heart with us, Pam, and sharing those insights. It's truly so meaningful. In closing, what would you like to say to wrap up this whole, it's kind of been a conglomerate discussion of, business and scaling there and your lifestyle and joy and all of the pieces. Is there any last final wisdom that you'd like to impart?
Well, I just have to thank you, Gwen. This has been a great show. You've been a wonderful host. I hope your listeners, really, watch you or listen to you constantly, because I've listened to your other guests that you've had, and the nuggets that I get from those interviews are just awesome. So I just hope that you continue to do this because it's very helpful to people.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Pam. That is not what I was expecting at all. So I don't know what to say, but I'm just so grateful. Thank you.
It's true. It's true. Just know it's true though.
Well, thank you. And any, so with that, any other insights to wrap up just growing your business and moving forward with your dream that you'd like to share in closing?
Yeah. People worry about failure. They worry about risk. Don't think about that. When you start your business, it should be a happy thing. So you're passionate about it. You're excited about it. Don't get doom and gloom thoughts in your head. I mean, sure, there's things that you have to do to protect yourself and to do right to make it successful. But hey, again, you get a good guideline. If you get a good mentor, somebody helping you, I mean, literally, you can be very successful in your business. So don't give up. Don't let those fearful thoughts stop you, because you can do it.
I love it. Thank you so much, Pam. It's been such a joy. Again, we'll have that link that you shared so generously of the link to your book, How I Fired My Boss and Made More Money. And that everybody listening gets a free download of that. That is just amazing. So head to SeriousExecutives.com/joyful living. We'll include that in the show notes as well, so you can connect there. But yeah, thank you again, Pam, for being on the show.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yay. And thank you so much to all of you listeners. We so value your time and sharing this time with us. And I hope that this has been inspiring and energizing, especially to really taking action on your dreams and stop dreaming about it and start taking action. Make it a reality, because you only have one life to live, like what Pam was referring to earlier, that time is short. So do it now. So we're sending you so much love and cheering you on in that, and hoping that your day is really filled with joy today. We see, and we'll be talking to you all soon. Bye. And in the end, only love will last. You've been listening to Joyful Living. If you haven't already done so, be sure to email me at quinn@joyfullivingmovement.com so I can send you our yummy Joyful Living welcome package filled with lots of awesomeness, including access to our private Joyful Living network. I read every email from my listeners and would love to hear from you. Also, be sure to leave a review on iTunes, and most importantly, have a joy-filled day.